Boss and managers, who is the most entitled employee you've ever had to deal with? My ex-husband and I used to run a restaurant. We hired a lovely young girl to be a waitress. During her training, she was super excited to see how the dishwashing machine worked. It's not like a home dishwasher, it's more like a car wash. Dishes go in on a rack where the door is sealed, they're blasted with a million streams of scalding hot water and soap. The entire cycle took 45 seconds and the tray would slide out to make room for another. I tried to keep my cool when she squealed in delight. I've never washed a dish before in my entire life. As a mom of 4 at that time, I couldn't fathom a life of having never washed a dish. Did she grow up with a maid? This girl ended up being the best employee we'd ever had. Some servers would max out at 4 to 5 tables, giving progressively declining levels of service until guests were annoyed waiting for drinks of forgotten orders. Ariel, on the other hand, could handle 8 tables like it was nothing and was glad to do the dishes. Her tips were always higher than everyone else's because she worked hard and got the job done, always with her lovely smile. No matter how many tables she had, each one felt like they had her complete attention. I only tell her story for contrast. When I heard that she'd never previously washed a dish, I was skeptical that she could handle the workload I was training her for. I couldn't have been more wrong. As our business grew, we opened another location and hired a young hostess. She wasn't very intelligent, and I'd often have to remind her to leave her phone stowed while she was on the clock. After being forced to actually work a few shifts, she began to pout about everything, missed shifts, and the rest of the staff wasted a lot of time doing her job. She was useless. Here in Washington State, we're required to hang posters so our staff knew about labor laws and minimum wage standards. It very clearly stated both on the sign and in the state's labor board website that a person who is fired is to receive and of their outstanding pay on the following payday. When the phone hostess was fired, it was the day after payday. She'd worked 5 days into the new pay cycle, but she insisted that she wasn't leaving until she was paid. While I was eager to remove her from the building, there was no way I was going to allow some bratty 17-year-old kid to bully me into rearranging my day just so that she could get a check that wasn't due for another 2 weeks. I said no. You'll get paid on payday like everyone else. If she'd been a good worker, or if she had a family to care for, I might have shown mercy, but she was a spoiled brat throwing a tantrum. That wasn't enough for her, but she left, sprinkling veiled threats that I was going to regret messing with her. Her father was a police officer in town and he stopped in to see me the next day. He said he was here to pick up his daughter's check. I told him there must be some sort of misunderstanding, she will receive her check on payday. He wasn't happy with that and insisted that he'd be calling the Department of Labor. I advised him that was probably a good idea, maybe they could explain it better than I was. The next day, her mother called, ranting and raving like a lunatic about how all their friends would boycott us, how she was wrongfully terminated and she would see me in court, and all sorts of other garbage. I couldn't take it anymore and put her in her place, with facts about her daughter's on-the-job behavior, and I even suggested that they're creating a monster by allowing their little princess to move through life ignorant of actual laws and sucking her parents into her phony little drama. Don't you have better things to do? And as people who work in law enforcement, shouldn't you be teaching your kid to be aware of what their legal obligations are? Your daughter can't even show up for work and do her job. What kind of future can she possibly have if she can't even do this little job correctly? The phone call ended and I called the labor board myself, just to make sure I was reading the rules correctly. I was. When our stack of paychecks came in the FedEx envelope from the accountant, I rushed her straight to the post office, just to make her wait a little longer. I even spent the extra $5 to require a signature upon delivery. The law said that if it was mailed, it must be postmarked on or before the official payday. To top it off, that was a Friday and Monday was a holiday. I smiled all weekend long, ignoring her family's calls and visits. I'd done nothing wrong. And just to be clear, I think this was the only time I ever put a payroll check in the mail. Everyone else received them at work.